Let's talk about the each-way bet when it comes to national security that the Labor Party is having. And, well, here is the Prime Minister calling Penny Wong out on it.
Within days, the Labor Party seems to be having an each-way bet. I don't have each-way bets on national security.
There are reasonable questions about costs. There are reasonable questions about jobs. There are reasonable questions about capability. And there are reasonable questions about our capacity to act independently. And all of those issues are reasonable. And it is, as I said, very disappointing we see the Prime Minister playing the politics again.
Now, Bronwyn, they have been caught out here because while they said the right things on the early days, the reality is that the former Prime Ministers have pulled them back to this each-way position, and Australians will not like that. They will not endorse that at the upcoming election.
No, Paul. What else would you expect from the Labor Party, a socialist party? You know, this new pact on the new submarines is just joy to my ears. I set out to set a plan out for Australia, which I thought was really gives us the opportunity to set ourselves up in the future. I set out to identify socialism and how to combat it, and then ask for action. Get out of that submarine contract and start leasing submarines from, I said, United States, the Virginia class. I then said, let's get out of the Paris Agreement. Give us back cheap electricity so we can put manufacturing back on. Get out the red pencil so we can cut out waste and start to put the economy on the right track. Whatever the direction the Prime Minister takes from here on in, he set a firm base by getting out of that contract and looking at our defence and putting it first, second and third. The Labor Party is a socialist party. It will always find some way that it can defend the international cabal, but anything but to protect Australia. So it's most important that we have more action. We've got one step in the right direction. Now let's get on with it.
Dave, again, the Labor Party, within a couple of days. Now, look, are there reasonable questions about cost? Absolutely. But to parrot the same arguments that Paul Keating has made as to why we shouldn't have done this deal at all is why the Prime Minister was dead right talking about the each-way bet.
Look, absolutely. And we've seen this from the Labor Party before, Paul. I mean, you might recall they supposedly supported our call for an independent investigation into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic and where the virus came from. But then they criticised us for the execution of it. And here again, they seemingly support, in principle at least, the decision to acquire nuclear-powered submarines, but they're very critical on the detail. And it is trying to appeal to both sides of the argument. I think they should just pick a side and stick to it. I think Paul Keating's wrong on this. I think his view of the world is about 2 decades out of date, and his view of what he seems to assume is China's fundamentally benign international behaviour is not borne out by the facts of the last several years.
Also, what about Tanya Plibersek and part of what she had to say today about initial support? Here's what she said.
It is proper that as the details emerge, we scrutinise them. And it's quite proper too that we look back on the failed deal with the Japanese subs, the billions of dollars and years wasted, then pursuing the French submarine deal, and ask the government a few hard questions about how they've managed to stuff it up quite so badly.
So, Warnie, apart from, same-day support, because, well, this is a slam-dunk decision when it comes to national security, a couple of ghosts from the past seem to have pulled them back to the maybe position, and good luck finding the majority of Australians believing anything other than, if it makes us safer, good.
Paul, let me just say, I don't even bet each way on the dish lickers, let alone on national security. And I can tell you now, the coalition in this country, the Conservatives in this country, have run rings around the Labor Party on foreign policy over the past 20 years. Stop the boats. You can explain a whole litany of wins from Dutton and Morrison over the last decade when it comes to foreign policy. I don't think this country needs to be lectured by the Labor Party about foreign policy and making sure we get our defence right. I said this last week and I'll say it again. I think Peter Dutton will go down without question as one of the best defence ministers in this country. Him and Morrison nailed this agreement. It is the best for Australia. And as I said last week, there are captains of industry in this country who say that the biggest issue facing us right now is our strategic military capability, and it has just soared, gone through the roof because of this deal.